Hello, everyone. This is Rick, and welcome to Astral Club. Is the Master leading us to World War III? Before I get started, just want to mention if you're interested in supporting the work of Astral Club as a patron on Patreon, there'll be a link in the description. Our newest patron is Wayne Thornhill, and he is an Astral Master. I'm also offering personal lessons for those who would like to have a lesson with me for 3 hours concerning how to astral project. And I'm offering 2 weekly videos now every week, Wednesday in the afternoon, and of course the usual Saturday in the morning. And all of these links will be in the description. I put together a video which was a very out of the ordinary one for me 5 months ago. It was entitled An Astral Vision of World War III. And I'll have a link to this video in the description as well in case you want to review it. Or maybe you haven't seen that one. I don't know. It was unique in that I didn't seek it out. In essence, I left my body and was whisked away to the Middle East and taken to a place called Tel Megiddo, which in Greek is Armageddon, and shown a massive multinational army that was preparing for an enormous battle. And in that video, I saw this army destroyed with nuclear weapons. I came back and I held on to this for a long time. I decided to publish it 5 months ago for a number of reasons. I decided that it was up to my individual listeners and members of Astral Club as to what they wanted to do with this information. I had held off releasing it because I don't like releasing negative information, but I decided let's just put it out there. I didn't seek it, it was given to me, so maybe it needed to be shared. So I went ahead and shared it. It was a little shocking to me this week because I've had a lot of people referencing that video to me in light of the current situation which is going on in Ukraine. And obviously, I'm very concerned, as much as anyone else is. I believe we have power to change our future, and that it is still within our power to avoid a future like this. But I was recently lightly sleeping, and I was thinking about the current situation, and I heard this distinct whisper in my ear, and it said, "This is how your civilization ends." So I came to instantly, and I thought to myself, is this situation right now in Eastern Europe, is it a spark that's going to eventually set off this calamity? Can it still be avoided? I hope so. I was once an officer in the United States Air Force, and I am a U.S. citizen, and I love this country. But my ultimate loyalty is to Earth and the human race. And this really came to me when I was in my astral form outside of our galaxy looking in and seeing this beautiful galaxy, knowing that my home sun was some speck in that enormous light show, and that my whole world was a little tiny planet circling that sun. And when I was out there in the darkness, all alone, I felt that my only connection was to my fellow humans, to humanity. And that becomes very apparent to you when you realize you're most probably many tens of thousands of light years away from the nearest person with whom you have anything in common with. And all the little disputes and prejudices and everything else that we carry with us on a daily basis, our nationalisms, that all falls away when you're tens of thousands of light years away and you're lost in this great ocean of darkness, realizing you're just this tiny speck of intelligence, of humanity, and that your connection to consciousness, to those who also bear that same spark, are located on that little planet. And the difference between one person in one nation and another person in another nation is negligible. Believe me, if I was lost in a spacecraft where I was in my physical form, I would be happy for any company, whether they were Chinese, Russian, American, Canadian, I don't care. UK, doesn't matter. British, French, you name it, because they would be human. And we would have so much in common, especially compared to whatever was around us. It's like being in a rowboat in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Do you really care who's going to be there with you, supporting you? You really care that you have some minor differences? No, because you're lost in this enormous sea and it's hostile. And the only thing you have in common is that fellow human. So that experience really crystallized my complete and ultimate loyalty to me, which is to this planet and our human race. I decided to visit my angel. And when I got there, he was expecting me, as he almost always is. And I asked him, you know what's going on right now in my reality on Earth. And what can I do to help my planet and my reality? He said, the master and his forces have been very busy. And he showed me, let's call it a 3D map of all time, space, dimensions. Now, imagine a record of where someone has been. And then imagine that as a line. Well, all time, space, and dimensions have this enormous spider web all over them, showing where the master and or his forces have been and where they've been using their influence to alter events. And it was mind-numbing. I said, where do you begin? I mean, it reminded me in a little way of this app that I have. We share it amongst our family, and you can see where everybody is at any one time. And if you access a certain part of that app, it shows where you or the person has been over the last week. Now take that up to the trillionth degree and put it through all space and time. And I say, where do we start? Where do I start in this situation? It was bewildering what I could do. My angel recommended that I go and start with some political figures. And he explained to me what had been happening in a very small way with some of our political figures. And the countries that figure into this are three that I'm going to talk about, and that's the U.S. and Russia and China. Every one of those politicians for a number of years now has been subtly influenced by the master. Now, he can't out and out command them. He can't out and out change their personality unless they're extremely psychologically unstable. But if they're not, all he can do is subtly push, take advantage of a personality trait or a deficit in that personality and try to emphasize it a little bit more, to push them a little bit more in that direction so that there's a better chance of them acting in such a way that they'll become a piece of the greater puzzle that he's trying to alter, the world that he's trying to create. For instance, I was shown, starting with the U.S., Trump. Now, I don't have any political, doesn't matter. We're talking about all politicians here. And let's face it, politicians in general tend to have certain flaws because they seek after power. That's why they're politicians for the most part. So there's certain things in common, certain weaknesses that the master preys upon. Trump, he was seeking after power. He had narcissistic tendencies, paranoia, him and his wall between the United States and Mexico. And he was subtly influenced, and those traits were pushed forward, creating an instability and doubt about the world and the United States. Biden wants to be loved like FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. So he's spending trillions of dollars that we don't have. He's causing inflation. He's endangering the dollar. He's endangering the stability of the United States. And he's endangering the reputation of the United States as a stable and reliable power. Because if people lose faith in the dollar, they lose faith in the United States. And if that happens, there's major changes that we will not like, certainly in the United States. He also has an authoritarian streak. He doesn't like to talk about it, and you won't see it in the media very much because they're very friendly to him. But he is very much on the side of heavy-handed government over individual freedom. He has a belief system that the government knows what's best for you. So the best thing that you can do is follow their direction. Now, he has good intentions, but as we all know, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. He wants to help people, but he's also promoting more division. And that's not helping matters any. So that's the United States. So what's going on with Russia and China? Well, it's similar, little different. Putin and Xi Jinping have a lot in common. They're authoritarian by nature. They want to restore old empires. And both of them have said as much. They've got inferiority complexes. Russia wants their former glory back. Putin used to be in the KGB. He remembers when the old Soviet Union was right up there with the United States, the mutually feared powers, the mutual enemies controlling the world. China is still dealing with an inferiority complex that they've had now, going back to the Opium Wars. And inferiority complexes are dangerous. Germany had one in the 20s and 30s after losing World War One. And that inferiority complex allowed Hitler to rise and to eventually kick off World War Two. So, what the Master's been doing with each of these leaders, and obviously many more throughout time and space and dimensions, I'm just giving you a few examples. Otherwise, this video would go for days, weeks, and possibly years based on what I saw. He is subtly pushing these people, especially as they sleep at night. Now, I believe that Putin is probably being guarded, much like the Secret Service is guarding the President of the United States. And I'm talking about the astral ones. I'm sure the Russians have something similar, and I'm sure the Chinese probably do too. However, the Master is using his powers to be able to influence these individuals as they sleep. As I said, he's not changing them. He's not creating attitudes that aren't there. He's pushing certain traits and making them more extreme. Remember what Einstein said. He said, "I do not know with what weapons World War III will be fought, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones." That vision that I saw in that video, an Astral Vision of World War III, scared the heck out of me. What can we do about this? There's very little that I can do on my own, or even with the assistance of our rebellion. Believe me, we are doing things. We are fighting back. I can't get into the details here because then they could probably be countered, and I don't want that to happen. I'm sharing this with you now because that cat's out of the bag. The Master knows we know what's going on. He just isn't sure about what we're doing about it. So I can't share that right now. But what we can do is direct our energies to helping the various leaders, trying to shield them, send them light that will help to turn them back from these extremes where they're being pushed towards. Aid, the Ukraine, and try to help them in any physical way you can, as well as in any astral way you can. Send energy their way. Support their leaders. And send energy to Putin too. He needs to be changed in some way. His attitudes, his fears, his ambition, he needs to see that he is leading his country not to greater glory, but to eventual destruction. And unfortunately, he'd take a lot of others down with him. And I don't want that to happen. As I said, I care about this planet. I care about our species. And I see all these players as fellow humans. And we have to encourage that mindset to grow. And I think if everyone listening to this and an Astral Club can start directing that positive and peaceful energy in those directions, then you can aid the effort that's already going on that I can't get into right now. And perhaps we can start subtly changing the direction that we seem to be heading in now. And believe me, you don't want that reality to happen that I saw in that Astral Vision of WW3. You don't want that to happen. No one does. As a matter of fact, if I put a survey out there today and ask every person in every country, do you want another world war, or would you rather not do that? I'm guessing that I'd have an overwhelming amount of people saying, yeah, I'd rather not do that whole World War III thing. So please spare a moment, if you can, wherever you can, to send that energy to one of these leaders and encourage them to open their heart and to use the better angels of their nature and listen to them and not the fear that leads to negativity, authoritarianism, and other traits that will lead to harm and possibly the destruction of our race. Okay, if you thought that video was worthwhile, please hit the like button. Share it with those of like mind. Subscribe if you haven't already. If you have, make sure you hit that bell. Please, I want your questions and comments. I love that stuff. And don't forget, in the description, there'll be a link to that World War III video. And there'll also be a link to Patreon. And if you're looking for private lessons, you could find information there as well. Once again, this is Rick, and I will see you on the astral plane.